From the Homes for Heroes studios in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you are tuned in to Real Talk with Homes for Heroes. Here is your host, Seth Jessica.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, the podcast with digital marketing strategies and tactics to help you grow your real estate or mortgage lending business. I am Seth Jessica, the emerging media manager at Homes for Heroes, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk with Homes for Heroes. I really do appreciate it. I would also really appreciate if you guys subscribe to Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, regardless if you are tuning in on your favorite podcast directory or if you're tuning in on YouTube. If you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell. And that way, every time we publish a new episode of Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, you will be notified and we will deliver great content to your doorstep that will help you grow your real estate or mortgage lending business. So yeah, we really appreciate you tuning in. And today we're going to do the monthly roundup for January. So if this is your first time tuning in to Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, or if this is the first season that you're tuning into Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, we typically do a monthly roundup at the end of each month. And we bring up the headlines the important headlines that are making news across either the real estate industry or the digital marketing industry. We bring these headlines to the forefront and we talk a little bit about them so you guys can be aware and keep a pulse on what's going on and the news that's important to your business, so you can make adjustments or you can pivot and maneuver to make sure that you're staying relevant in today's fast-paced and ever-changing real estate market. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm also going to give you guys a heads up on what you guys can expect from Real Talk with Homes for Heroes in the month of February, as well as what you can expect from Digital Dive with Homes for Heroes in the month of February. And if you're unfamiliar with Digital Dive with Homes for Heroes, it's another video series that we produce on YouTube and Instagram TV, and it's digital marketing tutorials for real estate professionals. So it's more of a step-by-step tutorial videos where Real Talk with Homes for Heroes is more of a topical approach discussing topics. So we're going to be talking about what you can expect from those two shows in the month of February. So you can put it on your calendar, know what you can expect. And as always, I always really do encourage your comments and feedback. So if there's something that you want us to talk about on Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, or if there's some kind of digital marketing tutorial that you'd like to see on Digital Dive with Homes for Heroes, please let me know. I love creating stuff for you guys. So let me know what you guys are looking for. So let's jump into today's episode and talk about the headlines that made news in the month of January. So we're going to talk a little bit about the real estate market's production in the month of December and how the existing home sale market fared. We're also going to be talking about the smart home technology that was making news at the Consumer Electronics Show. Really interesting news that came out of there. And then we're also going to be talking about some new policies that Facebook is implementing for political ad campaigns. Now, I know that we're real estate professionals and Facebook is making changes to political ad campaigns, two different industries, but these changes always do impact everybody across all industries who are advertising on Facebook. So I want to make sure that you guys are aware of that and you guys can make adjustments so your advertising isn't disrupted. So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into that, I want to talk about one really interesting story that I found as I was doing my research for today's show. And this story comes out of, I found it on Inman. So if you guys are familiar with the cult horror movie classic, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if you're not familiar with it, it's probably before your times, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was an extremely popular horror movie back from God, I'm going to date myself back from when I was a kid. But this was back from when horror movies were actually good. It was great. So anyways, the story is about this company called the Myers House is creating what Inman called an open house, but let's just call it what it is. It's a open house / sleepover at the original house from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I know this isn't relevant to the real estate industry, but I found it on Inman and I found it extremely entertaining. And actually, I'm really, really interested, and I don't know that I'll be able to attend, but it sounds like so much fun. So there's an open house / sleepover at the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on, I think it's March 29th and March 30th. And what it is you have the opportunity to sleep over in the house of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And they're going to have barbecue. They're going to have film screening. They're going to have board games, trivia, and this sounds amazing. Like, count me in if I had the ability just to get up and leave and go to Texas. So this is actually going to be in, where is it? What's the town? It is in Kingsland, Texas. And there's only 13 spots available for each night. Lucky number 13. So can you just imagine that? Being able to sleep over in the house from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's like a venture back to your teenage years where you get to play Trivia Pursuit, you get to have snacks, you get to have a barbecue, and you get to stay in a horror or a house from a horror movie. It sounds absolutely amazing. So the cost is $400 for Sunday, March 29th, or $350 for Monday, March 30th. Like, seriously, guys, I would consider this if I had the ability to just get up and leave to Kingsland, Texas. I just don't know how feasible that is with my job. But if you guys are interested, if you're tuning in on YouTube, I'll put up a screenshot of the Instagram post. But if you guys are interested, I'll actually provide a link in the description of this episode to the event where you can sign up. But the only deal, the agreement that you have to make with me is that if you go to this event, you have to take pictures and you have to share your experience with me, because I absolutely want to do it. They actually have a couple more events coming up. They have one on Saturday, April 25th for Edward Scissorhands, and Friday, June 5th, which is actually sold out, but one for Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. I don't know. Sounds like a very innovative company that's doing this. It's called the Myers House. Again, if you guys want more information on it, the description or the link will be in the description of this episode. You guys can check it out, but make sure that you share your experience with me if you do go. So just a little bit of fun news. Can't be all business. We got to have some fun on Real Talk with Homes for Heroes. I found it entertaining. I hope you guys did too. But now let's get to the business at hand, because there are some important things that we want to share from the real estate industry, and most importantly, December's production. So again, if this is your first time tuning in or your first season tuning in to Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, we typically share the production or stats of how the real estate market performed, and we rely on the National Association of Realtors for the data that we share. We feel it's the most reputable, and they have the best data to share. The only fallback, which makes sense, it's reasonable, is that for the month of January, we can't share the production numbers, obviously, because the month isn't over yet. But NAR also typically does not share December's production numbers till halfway through the month of January. So we're going to be sharing what the real estate market did for the month of December. And it was a strong month. Very good signals. So let's start off with existing home sales. So NAR released a summary of existing home sales data showing that the housing market activity this December increased 3.6%. And that is a 10.8% from December of 2018. So extremely strong numbers in terms of production of existing home sales. And what's even more impressive, as we'll get into in a little bit, is that the inventory is decreasing and is showing that we're kind of headed towards this apex where inventory is going to meet home sales and something's bound to break. Who knows? It's, with new home sales, there's kind of been a halt with that in terms of the trade agreements between Canada and US. But as those agreements come into fruition and the new home construction or new construction ramps up, maybe that's going to put an ease on the inventory. We'll see. But very impressive numbers in terms of existing home sales. Median home prices. So the national median existing home price for all housing types reached $274,500 in December, up 7.8% from a year ago. And this is the strongest growth since January of 2016. So existing home sales are increasing, median home price increasing. That's really good news because it's showing it's a strong economy. I mean, even though the home prices are going up, the consumer sentiment and confidence is still there because they're willing to go ahead and purchase, even though the median home price is increasing. And that price increased consistently across all four regions: the Midwest, the South, the West, and the Northeast. So it was consistent across all regions. So really good news in terms of that. Inventory. December's inventory figures were down 14.6% from last month, standing at 1.40 million homes for sale. And that's compared with December of 2018, the inventory levels were down 8.5%. So this would mark 7 straight months of year-over-year declines and is a record-setting low since 1999. So a record low in 20 years. We haven't seen this little inventory in 20 years. And that's reducing the number of days between contract to from listing to contract. So it takes approximately 41 days for a home to go from a listing to a contract in the current housing market, down from 46 days a year ago. Inventory is low, so things are moving fast, and production is ramping up. This is showing a strong economy. And the other last part that I want to talk about is the home type. So in December, single-family homes were up 2.7%, and condominium sales were up 10.7% compared to last month. Single home sales were up 10.6%, while condominium sales were up 12.7% compared to a year ago. And single-family homes had an increase in up to 8% at 276,900, and condominiums rose 6% at 255,400 from December 2018. So this December was showing a really great month in terms of real estate production, considering increasing house prices, decreasing inventory. The housing market was still really strong. And I'm going to do some more research and see if I can't find a link to the article that I was reading. And this was an article that was produced by the National Association of Realtors as well. But they reported that they did a survey among home buyers, and the confidence was there that across all four regions, across the West, the Midwest, the South, and the Northeast. Everybody was, I shouldn't say everybody, let's be realistic here. the majority of the population, and when I say majority, the percentages were up in the 70 to 80%. So a vast majority of home buyers were, they thought that right now was a great time to buy a home. And similarly, among home sellers, 70 to 80% of the population surveyed considered now a great time to sell a home. So with the numbers boding so well in December of 2019 and that type of home buyer sentiment and confidence that we see in surveys that NAR is doing, 2020 is ramping up to be an amazing year. And again, as these new construction contracts come into play and the new home market can kind of ramp up, I think that we're going to see a really strong 2020. The signals are there, and I think that you guys are in for a great year, a record year, and I look forward to it. So that's what we saw from, again, I'm going to try and find a link to that article about consumer sentiment, home buyer sentiment, and home seller sentiment, and I'm going to see if I can't find it and provide a link in the description to the show, because I don't just like to put out hearsay or kind of just, I like to reference what I'm talking about. So I'll try and find that, but that's what the National Association of Realtors had to share with us for in terms of the market, real estate market for the month of December. So next, let's talk about the second headline, which is smart home devices is the talk of the real estate industry at CES. So if you're not familiar with CES is a consumer electronics show which takes place in Las Vegas. And this year it took place from January 7th through the 10th. And really this is a consumer electronics across all industries. It's not really specific to the real estate industry. So if you've never heard about CES before, there's no real reason why you should as a real estate professional. It goes across so many industries. It's really, it's I guess, important for people who are innovating new technologies for consumers to get in front of retailers, get in front of marketers, and kind of show what they have. But there's always news that comes out of CES that is relevant to each industry. And this year was, and actually for the second straight year, the talk was about smart home devices. So there were two big takeaways that came out of the Consumer Electronics Show. First one, the three major tech giants, Apple, Google, and Amazon, they are collaborating to create common best practices between smart speakers and smart home devices. I'm going to break this out a little bit more in depth, but the second one is companies are introducing new and innovating existing technology to create advantage of home buyers' demand for smart homes. So there's a lot of new products and new innovation that's going on and being introduced to home buyers, and it's creating this demand among home buyers. So let me break these out individually, because I think they overlap, but they are two separate topics. So first, let me discuss the three tech giants that are collaborating. First of all, Apple, Amazon, and Google collaborating is news in itself. These are the three behemoth. They're the tech giants, and they are competing head to head against each other for everything within their real estate or everything within their industry. They're not in real estate. They're competing head to head in their industry, and they typically do not collaborate. So when they collaborate and they come together to create common best practices, that is big news in itself. But what they're collaborating to do is there are devices that go into smart homes, whether they be, drains that automatically drain once temperature of a room hits a freezing temperature. They automatically drain so the pipes don't freeze. Or maybe it is shades that automatically draw once a certain lighting threshold is hit on that window. There's certain smart home devices that certain companies are creating. Now, Google, Amazon, and Apple all create smart speakers that integrate, and you can activate these smart home devices through the smart speakers. So, for instance, and let me just turn off my Alexa device here because she'll start talking to me. But let's just say that I wanted to close a certain blind. I could use my Alexa device and say, Alexa, close this blind, and it would do it for me. Or Alexa would give a command to the smart home device and it'd all be voice activated. It's really slick. But as new companies are creating new technologies around smart homes, these smart speakers need a way to integrate with them. And Amazon, Google, and Apple are all working together to make sure their systems are an open source so they can be easily integrated with these smart home devices. So therefore, a company doesn't need to make a specific smart home device that can only integrate with Alexa, or a certain smart home device doesn't need to be necessarily created to integrate only with Google. They're creating a best practice and an open source technology that allows all these smart home devices to integrate with the smart speaker of the home buyer's choice. So that way, if your home buyers are looking at houses on the market and they have a preference for a certain smart home device, or they have a preference for a specific smart speaker, the smart home devices that come in that house can be easily integrated with the smart speaker of their choice. Or they can purchase smart home devices and integrate it with the smart speaker of their choice. So that is big news in terms of the fact that they're collaborating. And when you're having home buyers that are looking at who have that preference in their home buying wish list, that they want smart home devices that are easily integratable with the smart speaker of their choice, they're going to integrate with all of them. So it's good information to know for your home buyers. Now, let's talk a little bit about the companies that are creating innovative technology. So Procter & Gamble was a big company that was highlighting new smart home devices. For instance, they were focusing on toiletries, like bathroom items for some specific reason, but they're creating a device that will allow you to know what your bathroom smells like before you walk in it through a smart home device. So you know what the bathroom is going to smell like without having to smell it through the smart device. Really weird. I don't know how they figured that was a priority, but they did. They are also creating a robot that will fetch toilet paper for you. Guys, I am not making this up. This is true facts. So this is Procter & Gamble. There's all these new technologies that companies are creating. And yeah, home buyers are probably not going to come to you and say, hey, I want to make sure that my house has smart home devices that fetch me toilet paper. But it's becoming more of a commonplace for there to be smart home devices and have some particular preference for your home buyers. And specifically when you talk about Ring or Alto or Glass, which create doorbells, and you can see who's at your door from your mobile device, or there's cameras that record stuff that you can respond to people, or you can have conversations with people through your doorbell. I mean, these are all smart home devices. And there's a few reasons why this matters to you as a real estate agent or a mortgage lender with your home buyers. So it's not just that this is creating demand among home buyers. So first of all, it's important to know the difference between smart speakers and smart home devices for your home buyers. So when a home buyer is look on the market, or when a home buyer comes to you looking to make a purchase, and they think that having some kind of smart speaker within their home is going to make their house a smart home, or a smart device home. That's not true. These smart devices are things that automate particular tasks for you within the home, whether it's, again, draining your drains if a room hits a freezing level to make sure that the drains don't freeze, or again, closing shades automatically once the certain light hits that window, or if it is communicating through people who are visiting your home through a doorbell. These are the smart home devices. Now, the smart speakers are completely different. Those are the voice-activated devices that can initiate these tasks, and they work together. So knowing that difference is extremely important for your home buyers. But the other fact that you should take away from this is that houses that are considered smart homes will typically raise the price by 3 to 5% on the final closing price. So that's really important to know. So if you have home buyers that are coming to you and they're requesting, hey, I want to make sure that, I have smart devices in my home, you want to just give them that expectation right off the bat. Hey, we can find something for you, but just to let you know, that typically increases the final closing price of 3 to 5%. And the third point that I want to bring up about this, which is probably one of the most important. So as I said, this was the second year in a row that smart home devices were really the talk about at the Consumer Electronics Show. And last year, it was more about the door services, the Ring doorbell or the Alto doorbell. And there was an article written that I read, and it was written last year right after the CES event. And it was written by Angel Piontek, the Associate Broker and Vice President of Marketing at Coldwell Banker Elite. I read this article, and there were some really great points that I thought were extremely relevant and important for you guys to know in terms of these smart home devices. So I'll just give you the highlights, the points. And again, I'll provide a link to this article if you want to read more about it. But typically when you have a smart home device in your house, especially a doorbell or some kind of security system that has cameras, as a buyer, as you want to assume that there's a video recording you as you're viewing a home. And as a real estate agent, if you're walking your home buyers through home showings, you just want to give them a heads up that, hey, they could be potentially being video recorded through smart home devices. I mean, if the seller or the seller's representative does not let you know, which they should, you still want to just automatically assume that you're being recorded, because there's nothing worse than saying or doing something that you shouldn't be when you could be potentially being recorded. So that is one thing to take note of. And as a seller, be sure to disclose there are audio recording devices. And especially if you're representing a seller, you want to make sure that buyer's agents or people who are going to be showing the house are aware that there could be audio recording devices, because in some states, it is illegal to record conversations that you're not a part of. So again, it's just, it's more common sense, but at the same time, just take that extra step. If you're representing home sellers that have audio recording devices, have that communication with buyer's agents and potential home buyers that there are recording devices in houses. It just covers your butt. It covers the seller's butt, and you just don't want that extra stress. And because smart home devices are considered personal property, make sure to get the transfer of ownership in the writing with the sale of the home. So smart home devices aren't automatically transferred with the home. So you want to make sure that they're in writing, that if there is smart home devices in that house, that they're in writing. If the home buyer wants to, wants that a part of their purchase. So they are private property. They're not automatically included in the transfer of the home. And handing over virtual keys is just as important as physical ones. The seller should reset all of the connected devices to their factory default before closing. So this is referencing smart locks. So if a home has smart locks installed, those smart locks should be reset to the factory settings, the default settings. Otherwise, it's not giving the home buyer any confidence that the seller doesn't have access to the home after they move out. So it is just the same. It should be treated just the same as physical keys. Make sure that you reset the smart locks to the factory default settings before closing. So it's important because smart home devices is going to they're already becoming much more commonplace in real estate transactions. And as a real estate agent, knowing and being up to date on these smart home devices, how they impact consumer demand, how they impact the transaction, how they impact the home walkthroughs. All these smart home devices are making an impact. So you just want to make sure that you're in the know. And again, I'll provide links to these articles. Second year in a row, Consumer Electronics Show is highlighting smart home devices for the real estate industry. So it's certainly not going away, and it's only making a bigger presence known. So let's move on to topic number 3. So Facebook announced it's expanding transparency, giving more controls over political ads. So Facebook is getting ahead of the 2020 election, and they're putting new policies into place to protect our elections, make sure it's more legitimate, but they're also putting a lot of policies in place to protect its users and make sure that their users don't abandon the Facebook platform because of political advertising. And if you're like me, you're thinking, thank goodness. I personally am happy that Facebook is taking measures to protect me as a user, to make sure that I'm not annoyed by political advertising on Facebook. I'm also happy that they're making strides to make sure that our elections are not being tampered with. I don't want to get into that political debate. That's not what I'm here for. But measurements and policies that are going to protect us as voters, as Facebook users, I am all for. And I know that you're probably wondering, like, how does this all tie into real estate? So there's 4 policies that they put into play, and really 3 of them are not relevant to real estate professionals. So I'm not going to go over those because they're aimed to help political advertisers measure their audience size and better strategize their Facebook campaigns. But the one policy that they implemented is they are giving Facebook users the ability to control. They can see fewer political ads or fewer ads that are connected to special causes. So essentially what it is, as a Facebook user, I can go in and adjust my settings to make sure that I see fewer or I don't see any political ads. I can also go in there and say I don't want to see any advertisements, or I want to see fewer advertisements that are connected to special causes. Now, as real estate professionals, this isn't necessarily directly correlated to the real estate industry. However, it does impact not only us as real estate professionals, but it really affects people across all industries and how they position their messaging in their advertisements. So I see this every year with our advertising at Homes for Heroes. These approval or Facebook approvals for advertisements are done through machine learning and artificial intelligence tools. And basically what they do is they scan imagery, they scan messaging, and they check for certain sentiments within that messaging and the creative to determine, is this a political ad or is this an ad connected to a special cause? And if it is, then it's tagged as such, and it will then not be shown to people who have chosen to not see political ads or ads that are connected to special causes. Now, although you might not be connected to any kind of political campaign or special cause, the messaging could be skewed as or interpreted by a machine, because these machines are not perfect. They're far from perfect, but they do the best job that they can. And really, Facebook doesn't have enough manpower. They couldn't feasibly employ enough people to scan all these ads and make sure that they're all properly approved to be a political ad or a special cause ad. So the takeaway from this, as you're creating messaging, as you're creating creative or using imagery or videos for your Facebook ads, keep in mind that these machine learning tools could possibly interpret your messaging as connected to a special ad if you're not clear and concise about what you're trying to do with your advertisement. If it could, simple words like helping, it could be interpreted as connected to a special cause. Now, you can still use the word helping, but it might get disapproved. You're just going to have to go through the manual process. So here's what I recommend with all this. Maybe I'm making this sound more difficult than I need to be. Here's a takeaway. As we go into the political season of 2020, this election that's coming up, Facebook advertising is always going to be impacted. There is much more inventory, much more advertisements to get approved. The approval process slows down, and the approval process is much harder to get through. Place your advertisements 2 weeks in advance. Use that as a best practice in 2020. Place your ads 2 weeks in advance. If it takes a week for your ad to get approved or disapproved, you have time to make adjustments to it and request a manual review. Don't wait a day out to get your ads approved. It's just going to put you behind the eight ball. And especially with these new policies, and people can request not to see as connected to a special cause, you don't want your ad to get accidentally tagged in that and not have the ability to request a manual review. So simple takeaway, place your Facebook ads 2 weeks in advance, and you're not going to find a way around these, and you're not going to find a loophole to get you around these new policies. They just are put in place. They're for the common good of everybody on Facebook. It's really just make adjustments to how you place advertisements to make sure that you still have time to request manual approvals and to push them through, and they're not tagged or connected to a special cause. And it's all going to be premised off of your imagery or the messaging that you use in your Facebook ads. So this, just to give you a heads up, the expanded transparency feature will roll out in the first quarter of 2020, and the political ads control that will start in the U.S. early this summer. So start thinking about it right now. Don't even wait for these policies to go into play. Just start that as a common practice right now. I personally do it with all my advertisements. I place my ads 2 weeks in advance. That way, I know I'm not going to be behind the eight ball if they get disapproved or if they take a very long time to get approved. Start that practice now. So there you go, guys. Those are the headlines for January of 2020. I hope they helped. I think that's some important news, something to consider. Great month in December. All the signals are there for a really great 2020. I know you guys are going to knock it out of the park. You guys are going to do everything great in 2020. Think about how smart home devices are affecting home buyer demand, how they're affecting your walkthroughs with home buyers, as well as your contract negotiations with home buyers. It's all impacting it. So, and then Facebook advertising. Again, place your ads 2 weeks in advance. Find your way around the political mess. So real quick, before I let you guys go, I just want to give you guys a quick heads up of what you can expect from Real Talk from Homes for Heroes Real Talk with Homes for Heroes in February. So February 4th, I have a great interview with an amazing real estate agent out of Longview, Texas, Heather Hunter Kelly. One of my favorite real estate agents to follow on social media. She is an amazing individual, highly successful, highly creative, and so much fun. And it was a blessing to be able to talk to her. I have an interview with her on February 4th, and we're going to be talking a little bit about her progression as a real estate agent, her career progression as a real estate agent into a broker owner. We're going to talk a little bit about her approach to social media because, again, she's one of my favorite real estate agents to follow on social media and very informative in that if you're looking for a social media approach. Then we're going to talk a little bit about her speech she's going to be presenting at Success Camp 2020. So make sure that you tune into that. And then February 11th, how to use social media in 2020. I'm going to give you guys some walkaways. I'm going to give you guys some takeaways on how you can grow your audience on social media in 2020. February 18th, how to target audiences on Facebook advertising. So I know that I talk about Facebook advertising a lot, but I actually put this one in there because we are getting so many questions about this. This is such a popular question that I figured I needed to throw this in there because it's just going to be a good reference for the questions that we get. Facebook targeting is a big question, and why not just create a podcast around it? Help you guys out. That's what I love doing. And then February 25th, monthly roundup for February. And I can't tell you what's going to be in that, but I can assume that Inman Connect, New York, which is going on right now, I think that there's going to be some big takeaways that we can share with you guys. So that's what we have coming up in February. Make sure that you subscribe to Real Talk with Homes for Heroes on your favorite podcast directory. If you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any one of these episodes. And then real quick, Digital Dive with Homes for Heroes. So again, Digital Dive is another video series that we produce for YouTube and Instagram. It is step-by-step tutorials on digital marketing tactics and strategies. And February, I'm not going to go through each date, but we publish these episodes on Thursdays. So through the month of February, I'm going to publish episodes on Facebook advertising, and they're going to be step-by-step tutorials on, for instance, how to create a Facebook Ads Manager account, how to create a Facebook Business Manager account, how to set up your audience targeting on Facebook. I don't have these categorized out to tell you what specific episodes are going to be on specific dates, but Facebook advertising is we get so many questions about how to use Facebook advertising in so many different forms and fashions, and I think a library of step-by-step tutorials will be very advantageous for everyone, and so that's what I'm going to do in the month of February. I am going to build out a library of tutorials on Facebook advertising. So for that one, if you're tuning in on your favorite podcast directory, you will need to subscribe to Homes for Heroes YouTube channel so you can make sure that you don't miss a Digital Dive with Homes for Heroes. And again, those will be published on Thursdays in the month of February. So that's what you guys can expect from me and expect from Homes for Heroes. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in to Real Talk with Homes for Heroes. As I've said probably 3-4 times already, make sure that you subscribe to Real Talk with Homes for Heroes on your favorite podcast directory. Or if you're tuning in on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe and hit the notification bell. And that way we will notify you every time we publish a new episode of Real Talk with Homes for Heroes, and we will deliver great content to your doorstep to help you grow your real estate or mortgage lending business. And thank you guys so much, and I look forward to seeing you next week.